Well, the twiddling of thumbs over weekends is over. Rugby is back this coming weekend, and SuperSport will bring you all the action. Casalaga Rugby Championship gets underway. The Springboks taking on the Pumas in Durban, and we'll also touch on Currie Cup. We had a wonderful launch on Tuesday right here in the SuperSport Studio 6 arena, and we'll be previewing the first round of matches. Joining me in the studio, Xobani Popo, Otwan Dungane, and Victor Matfield. But these gents will be taking a closer look at the team selection made by Rassie Erasmus, and we'll talk very heavily in the show about rugby champs.
But then the kick jab through. Landafel gives chase, and Martin Landafel in for his first try against South Africa, a sixth in Test rugby. Yankees to Skossard, never held, and Kobus Skossard has his first Test match try. Serpentine and Rule. Raymond ruled it in. Dupree had beautiful hands, and here is Sia Kolisi. The entire Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium is on its feet.
Well, there are a couple of big names that return to the Springbok fold. One or two guys who are going to get their first run in rugby champs, and two debutants, I suppose, potentially as well, off the bench. Gentlemen, look at the Bok team. Vic, I'll start with you. Any major surprises? Anything that sort of stood out for you, or is this what you expected?
Yeah, it's pretty much the team you expected. I think Peter Steph-Toy moving back to the second row after Sia has been moved to the blind side again. Yeah, nice to see a guy like Warren Whiteley back as well. A lot of talk about him being the captain as well, but I think Sia did so well. And if you look at that loose trio, it's actually very well balanced. They missed Dwayne Vermeulen, that's really good over the ball. Now Francois Lowe comes in. But I must say, it's so nice to see Eben Etzebeth back. He hasn't played a game, so it's not going to be easy. He hasn't played for probably 6-7 months.
Yeah.
Would have been nice to see him play in a type of game, even if it was a club game maybe. But he's got class, so we know what he can bring, and it's great to see him back in the team. And then, yeah, the front row, Malcolm Marx also back after he missed the international against England. So I must say, a very, very strong front eight.
Well, we're looking at Eben. Odi, did you ever have to jump into a big match, either a big league match, Super Rugby match, or even a test match straight from injury?
Yeah, but I think fortunately for me, I've never had a massive injury that would take you out for as long as he's been out for, you know. But as Vic says, Eben is a quality player. He'd be raring to go. You know, he would have just been training on the sidelines with the doctors, and you know, there's nothing as good as match fitness. You know, he'll be keen to get going there. He understands that he won't be able to go the full 80, but I'm sure he'll give his best the time that he gets.
Yeah. Well, I must just add that in this first part of the show, we're taking a closer look at the forwards. We'll take a closer look at the backs when we return. So, Bobs, Vic mentions the balance in that loose trio, and it looks like a loose trio that's going to remain quite fluid. And as in, I expect the personnel to constantly keep on changing as Rassie sees fit. What do you make of that, for one, and Van Staden coming in off the bench?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it in terms of what those players do and their specific like core roles. So we know Fro is there to retain our position and get position. And slow down the opposition's ball. So that's what he's there for. Sia Kolisi is brilliant when he's carrying the ball and going forward, and his counter-attacking ability works out for a 7, and his stopping ability in the tackle. So that's perfect. With the linking play now, that's where South Africa can take it to the next bit with Warren Whiteley there, because of the way that he transcends from forwards and backs and the way that he's got that understanding. So that gives us a well-balanced back row. And that, for me, is something that we might have probably missed in terms of what we had during against the English. The man that's going to link with the backs and make sure that on the edges, We can play the ball into the edges, and that's where Warren lives, and that's where a player like a Kieran Reid is over there in terms of the edges. And hopefully we can get more game time for players like Marvin Ori, which is important because we have to build that depth, which I think that's why he is on the bench to cover up that number 4 lock position. While Peter Steph, we've seen his work rate and his appetite for that he can be there and play a full 80.
Yeah, no, it certainly is a team that I know is not quite settled. There will be a couple of changes. You spoke about Dwayne not being available right now. He will be, and obviously a big plan for him to go to Pretoria. What do you make of that, for starters? But obviously, as Bob says, all of this, we have to keep in mind the World Cup next year.
Yeah, I think it's all about that squad. And I think although Rassie said he's not going to give guys chances, he's picking his best teams every week, I think going into this Argentina game, there's also a guy like Eben giving him that time before we take on the All Blacks is very important. Yeah. And we need to build that squad. But I must say, every guy that's in that team deserves his spot. And they're playing great rugby. It's a great team. Maybe 1 or 2 changes to the next week. Still to make sure, listen, if you get to a World Cup and someone get injured, this guy can just come in. He's played there, he's done that. And I must say, that's the one thing I like about Rassie. It looks like he's really got confidence in everyone in that squad. You will think this guy's maybe just there, he's giving them a chance, he's breathing him, but you straight in, there's your chance, show me what you can do.
Exactly.
So I must say, I like that Rassie really goes out, believe in the guys, and he gives them the opportunity they deserve.
And I think, sorry if I can just jump on that point too, which is a very good thing for players. You know, you look at a guy like Lionel Mapu, you know, you would have thought his Springbok career is finished. But he put up his hand, and Rassie has given him a chance. He's putting him on the bench, you know. So it's quite a nice thing. And you know, Marvin Ori is also on the bench. He's seen what he has in Franco Mostert and Achilles Zeeman. And I think if you really think about it, is the guys would have wanted to start with that lock is probably Eben and Peter Steph.
Yeah.
So to get those guys going earlier on, so it's actually a very nice thing for him.
Right. Well, when we return, a closer look at the backs, since we've touched on the forwards, and Odd was jumping ahead, of course, because I can't blame him.
And the backs are very important.
The backs are very important, so don't worry, Odie. It's
got 2 backs. What's wrong today?
We had to balance the count. Come on, Vic. So when we return, a closer look at the Springbok backline. We'll also take a look at that Jaguares. No. It's not the Jaguares, it is the Pumas. But actually very little difference, I suppose, between the two sides. And they'll be continuing, hopefully for them, to build on the momentum that they picked up in Super Rugby. Well, we continue our build-up to the Springboks' first test of the Rugby Championship up against the Argentines. We looked at the team and spoke briefly about some of the forwards. There are a couple of backs as well who are quite exciting to talk about. So I'll start on this side of the couch. And the bench also deserves to be spoken about. Let's first start with the starting lineup. There's Andre Pollard, settled now, seemingly he owns that number 10 jersey. It's for him to lose.
Yeah, you look at that, X, and you think about the combination that he has with Faf de Klerk all of a sudden. And for me, that is where we want to grow. We want to grow with these 2 players as the pivots and the people that run and control our game patterns. Andre Pollard, we've been expecting so much from Andre. I think somehow he has delivered that comfort of knowing that this player can make the big calls, he can do the big things in big games. He has the pedigree, which is good for us, and he's got that leadership, which is something that I think we still need to grow in our backs because we don't have so many leaders. I mean, if you're looking at pack, there's about 4 guys who've already captained their franchises, was captain at the Springbok level, but then when you look into the back line, we don't have that much leadership. I think those 2 are very important in terms of driving that ambition that we want to have.
Only 96 caps combined in the backline for the Boks. The forwards, I think, 342.
Yes.
So that proves that point. Not too much experience. But what they do have, Otto, is a settled centre pairing. The guys know each other from the Sharks. They've had a wonderful season together. Blue, hot and cold, obviously. But it's a combination that could bode well for the future.
I think for the 2 players, it will give them a lot of confidence because they obviously play together at the Sharks and they understand each other and they know what the other guy can do. You know, Andre will obviously give you that forward momentum, you know, will create that space for Lukhanyo to run off. And, you know, I'm quite excited to see with the guys on the outside. You know, we've picked Apiwe and Mambimbi on the outside. You know, those are out-and-out finishers. You know, if you create for those guys, they'll definitely finish for you. And you've got Vili at the back. So I think Faf and Andre and Vili will be very important because the rest of the guys are quite young at international level, so they'll need those more experienced guys to keep them calm when things don't go well, which things don't go well all the time at test level. It's very tough against a very good Pumas team, so you'll need those guys to keep them calm and make sure that they just keep doing the basics well and just stick to the process.
We speak about Andre Esterhuizen as a player who's evolved his game, and we saw some footage of him. Certainly seems to have added an extra couple of bows to his game. That will only benefit Lukhanyo on the outside, Vic.
Yeah, it's very important for him as well. We've seen in Super Rugby how the Sharks use him with his left boot as well. He's got a very good left boot, and so that can take pressure off Andre as well. But yeah, the two of them playing together, and it's about that combination. Andre is really that strong guy that gets you over the advantage line, that gets you that go forward, and from there, a guy like Lukhanyo, he's got the best hands in the business. He's got soft hands, know when to give it. So yeah, great combination, and
good moves.
He's got the moves as well.
No, that's a good floss. That.
My daughter can do that. But yeah, and I think with the wingers we've got, again, Rassie just saying, listen, I've got confidence here. A guy like Mampipi played really well against Wales in that first test match. He was probably one of the standout players, and now he's getting his opportunity in the championship to show what he can do, and also at his home ground.
The one thing that always fascinates me with Lukhanyo is his work off the ball, and especially at the breakdown. He seems to almost work as hard as some of the Lucies we see in Super Rugby. He really is good at.
Well, he played on the flank before he moved to the centres, to the backline. So that has stayed with him, and that's how a player has started to grow. I mean, from when he started as a loose forward, those core skills that he learned as the first thing that comes in the mind, and it's instinctive, and he gets there. He's not scared to get involved there. He understands what his role is. But where I would like to see him improve and grow is his communication skills, especially leading that defensive line and becoming a Jacques Fourie player who is the one who drives that. I think if Lukhanyo can start to show that and it's rugby champs, then he'll cement that position as a 13 for the Springboks going forth.
Yeah, you must say that was the one area where we fell short in against England, and I think that's probably where a guy like Jesse Creel got a little bit of an upper hand of. He's a very good communicator. He understands when to go into, maybe just stand off a little bit. And we got found out there. So that's something he has to work on. He has to organize that outside three. He's the communication from the outside. He runs that defensive system. So it's going to be very important for him to improve on that.
And I think just touching on that defense, you know, obviously against England, you know, in that series we leaked soft tries. And the nice thing is now the guys have had a lot of time together. So now they've got to understand what Jacques expects of them in defense. You know, so I'm excited to see how much we've improved from where we were against England, because, you know, if we get off on a bad start in the championship, it's going to be tough to come back.
So someone whose potential was curtailed by injury at probably the worst possible time, Damian Willemse, junior Springboks. And during the tournament, when he was needed, I suppose, to step up for the junior box, he got that nasty injury, Bobs. And that would have been a tournament for him to really prove his mettle.
Yeah, because that tournament is a similar tournament where Andre Pollard did it for the under-20s at New Zealand, where he showed what he was capable of. He ran that tournament, he took the team, he drove the team all the way to the final, and we're seeing the results now. And that was maybe that miss, unfortunate. I guess that's where the opportunity was missed with Damian. But there's no player in this country who is as confident about his ability as that kid. Because we've seen how he just likes to take on big players. He doesn't mind putting on the big hits. And for me, what's nice about it is that he's rewarded for the work that he has done. He's played at fullback. He can play at 10, and I think this is such a massive learning curve. I mean, having a Vili Leroux where you can just milk so much from him, having 100 pollard training, seeing what is his processes, how does he go about setting up a game, how does he look after his forwards when the forwards have been defending for 5 minutes or they just set up a drive and more, what is his next sort of move or instinct to do?
Yeah.
So it's a good place for him, and it's good that we're starting to have competition.
And I must say, I like the way Rassie has been talking about maybe giving him a chance at fullback rather than at 10 at first. Because the thing is, he has to learn. At 10 needs to run the whole attack. He needs to run the whole game plan, everything. So he'll be there sitting in a Springbok locker room, hearing how Andre Pollard, how a Willie Leroux talk about where's the opportunities, what must we look at, and he's learning every day, every second. So but like Bob said, he was outstanding in Super Rugby, and he's got the confidence. He's very physical. It's not like he's a young kid. He doesn't want physical stuff. He'll get stuck in there, almost like pull it back a little bit. So,
you operated in the centres, on the wings, and almost later on in your career, did you start appearing more and more at fullback?
Yes.
Sometimes it seems that players gravitate towards that position. Here we've got a youngster who's starting at the back. What are the biggest challenges? I'm assuming defensively he's certainly going to have to step up, and he's going to have to look out for those up and unders.
I think, though, we have to compliment him. He's come a long way defensively with his one-on-one tackles. I think we saw a few clips there where before, you would actually tackle a guy behind the advantage line. Where we've seen here, he's actually making a solid hit, offensive hit, putting the guy behind. And to answer your question, at fullback, obviously, for a guy with his exciting ability to play, you get so much space at the back where you can see where the opportunities are. And if he comes in at fullback, they'll obviously be testing him with the high balls, which he'll have to be clinical in that and just organize with the guys for the back three.
Right, well, I think we should also, before run out of time, take a look at the Argentina side that's going to be playing this weekend. The last time they played in Durban, of course, it was a win for the RGs over South Africa, a bit of a shock result there, and it led to the Springbok coach having to make an apology to the nation. We don't want to see a repeat of that, but this is, as I said, Vic, a very settled team. These guys know each other oh so well. Mario Ledesma is now part of the international setup as well, so it's continuity. What would be the biggest challenge? Do you think that maybe they might be jaded from playing together for so many matches? I don't see it.
No, I don't think so. I think if you look at their squad, they've played together the whole Super Rugby season, so they know each other. They did really well. They had that 7 wins in a row. They had 4 victories in Australasia. And they had that little break now. I think the little break they had for 2-3 weeks would really have helped them because they've played every week. They played the international season as well. So I think the biggest thing for them is this little 2-3 weeks break. And it's the same coach now. So they've been together. They know what they're doing. They don't need as much time as, let's say, the Springboks to get together, to get into certain systems. They've known it, they've done it, and they've got the coach that they wanted there as well.
Gus Crevy comes in as captain for the. I think that's going to have a.
Well, I mean, at the end, he's just the guy who runs in the front, and everyone has to be the captain of their position.
Yeah.
But for me, looking at that, let's think about the Jaguares and the Pumas. For the last 3 years, they've used 2 hookers. So we don't know who's their third choice hooker. But then the more, for me, alarming place is a 10. Yeah. Sanchez is the only 10 that we do know about who plays for Argentina and the Jaguares. There's no one else that they have built, especially leading up to a World Cup. What's going to happen now if he gets the first injury and that happens to them, even here at the Rugby Champs? So they have to test a new fly half that has to come in. And as we mentioned, how important it is to have a fly half that can run the game, who understands the systems. So that's where I think maybe they're not bleeding enough players or breeding enough players that can become at the same quality and the same standard. Back three, though, is where I think that they've got a really big upper hand. Dalgi was outstanding, Bofeli is outstanding, Moyana is outstanding, and these players can play. If we kick loosely without a good chase line, they will take us apart.
Yeah, they certainly will. But added to what he says, do you guys think, and just to wrap up on Argentina, that the Pumas are a blockage in the system then, or the Jaguares are a blockage in the system for player development insofar as Argentina rugby goes and their national team?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that whole thing. Do they only pick players that plays in Argentina? There's some fantastic players playing in Europe at the moment. I think for them, especially only having so many players playing rugby in Argentina, they need to look at those players
I think
playing
they
in
have-
Europe. I think that will help them so much, and that will give them that depth that you talk about.
They will bring them in, I believe.
So they've opened it up.
Yes.
They've opened it up. The fact that now it's a World Cup year, they want to build their squads, but it's still at the same time. Most of those players are holding those big contracts in the French league, where the chairman becomes a very big thing to get across to him because he's saying, "I'll put my money into this guy. I want to see back my investment." He goes and he plays rugby champs. He's out for the whole season. Who compensates me?
Yeah, well, no one wants to take the favourites tag for this match. Even Rassie Erasmus was very quick to remind journalists earlier this week just how good the Argentines were in Durban the last time they played the Springboks there. It's going to be a tough match when we return. A closer look at this year's Currie Cup.